Take a moment to look at this painting. The Dutch artist Samuel van Hoogstraten painted it in the mid-17th century, and in it we see a scene framed through 3 perfectly aligned doorways. The first doorway is noticeable thanks to its narrow wooden frame and an iron latch casting a dark shadow. A bit farther inside, we find a sequence of rooms, each marked by its terracotta floor tiles. If you look closely, next to the second door, someone has left a broom and a towel, and on the threshold of the third, resting on a straw mat, there's a pair of slippers that seem to have been taken off just a few minutes earlier. As with many Dutch paintings from the 17th century, at first glance it might seem like nothing is happening here. But when the artist guides our eyes through these small details, the scene begins to reveal hidden layers, and the story becomes far more intriguing. If we look at the objects left on the floor, we can imagine that the maid has just finished her chores, or that she abandoned them halfway and rushed into another room. That room, in theory, should be locked, which is why the ring of keys hanging from the door immediately draws our attention. The maid also doesn't seem concerned about the tilted candle in its holder. She simply leaves it behind and keeps walking toward the back, ignoring even the painting hanging on the wall. That painting within the painting works like a fourth room we're allowed to enter with our eyes. There we see a woman from behind, dressed in satin, standing beside a bed with a red canopy. In front of her, a messenger holds his hat respectfully. Although the scene is quiet, everything suggests that the woman is receiving a letter, a very common theme in 17th century Dutch art, as we've seen in other analyses like the one about Vermeer. These letters are often romantic, making us wonder who wrote it and what it might contain. We don't know exactly what is happening beyond what we can see, but if we follow this interpretation, the maid is now inside that room, and the fact that her slippers are carelessly left on the floor suggests that she has broken the expected proper conduct. In 17th century symbolism, this small detail could be read as a hint of improper sexual behavior. Much of this painting's charm lies in that chain of connected rooms, which makes us feel as if we're looking through a telescope. The spaces reveal themselves and hide at the same time, pushing us to imagine what might be happening just beyond our field of vision. This technique was so common in the 17th century Dutch art that it earned its own name, Doorkijkje, sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, which translates to view through in English. It was a way to visually expand space, merging different worlds such as interior and exterior, domestic and public, intimate and communal into one continuous sequence. The doors don't work only as frames within the painting, they act as bridges between spaces, suggesting constant movement from one to the next. About a decade after the slippers, Johannes Vermeer painted The Love Letter, a scene that reuses many of these same motifs, though in a different context. Again, we see a broom and a pair of slippers left at the entrance of a room, but this time, both the maid and her mistress are present. The letter they're reading has just arrived urgently. The paintings hanging on the wall hint that the sender is a suitor who is far from home, and once again, it's up to us to decide whether the message brings good news or bad. In both Vermeer and Van Hoogstraten, looking through doors creates an absorbing experience. By placing the viewer outside the action but peering inward, it feels as if we're catching something unexpected, or perhaps even witnessing something we were never meant to see. Before Van Hoogstraten and Vermeer, the Dutch artist Nicolaes Maes had already explored the idea of the forbidden space in a much more direct way through a series of works known as the eavesdroppers. In these humorous scenes, a maid appears near an open doorway or hallway, caught in the act of secretly listening in. What she's trying to overhear might be a pair of lovers whispering, or simply other maids exchanging gossip. But the real charm of these paintings lies in how Maes plays with composition, the creativity of the architectural spaces, and the small details that betray clandestine activities. A good example is the eavesdropper with the scolding woman, painted in 1655. In this work, the figure of the maid appears twice, almost as if we're seeing her in two different moments. But Maes adds an extra touch of cleverness. He paints a satin curtain in trompe-l'oeil, placed so convincingly that it seems to hang in front of the canvas as if someone had just pulled it aside. If any artist wanted to emphasize the act of looking inward, that curtain makes it unmistakable. It is as close as a painting can come to making us feel like we're secretly eavesdropping. Now, if you've been fascinated by how these artists explored the Doorkijkje, there's another painter who is considered the true master of this motif. But before talking about him, I want to remind you that if you'd like to have any of the artworks you've seen in this video in your home, you can purchase them from our catalogue. On our website, you'll find more than 800 historical artworks, so you can choose your favorite and start your own art collection. Shipping is free worldwide, and as you can see in this video, our reproductions allow you to turn your home into your own personal museum. You'll find the link in the description. As I was saying, no artist explored the Doorkijkje more deeply than Pieter de Hooch. In works like Card Players in a sunlit room, the light travels from one space to another, entering through the window, bouncing off the polished doorway, and seamlessly connecting the outdoors with the interior, as if everything belonged to one continuous space. Unlike the playful tone of the eavesdroppers, his scenes focus on the quiet routines of domestic life. Rooms opening into other rooms, small actions, peaceful moments. They aren't trying to create mystery. They reveal that the home extends far beyond what we see. Doors and windows hint at courtyards, streets, and nearby rooms, giving the sense that the world inside the painting is larger than it appears, and that life continues even beyond the frame. A clear example is a woman with a child in a pantry. At first glance it seems simple, but it becomes more interesting the longer you look. From the pantry we see another room through an open door. On the wall hangs a portrait of a man above a cushioned chair, and in the distance a window opens onto the street. Light, air, and even the suggestion of sound flow between these spaces, as if the painting itself were breathing. De Hooch doesn't just use doors to guide us from one space to another. He also plays with different floor patterns, with the way light enters, and with textures to direct our gaze. In one of his finest works, the courtyard of a house in Delft, the passages and little corners gently lead our eyes toward different points in the scene. This makes us want to linger, almost as if we could overhear the conversation between the two women or feel the moisture in the air clinging to the sun-warmed bricks. As in all versions of the Doorkijkje, the composition carries us softly from one space to the next, from the courtyard to the shaded passage, and finally to the distant street. There comes a moment when we're not just looking at the scene, we feel as if we've stepped inside it. That's why the Doorkijkje isn't just a visual trick. It's an invitation to look beyond and to experience the painted space as if it were real. Now I'd love to hear your opinion about this motif. Did this way of looking through a painting change the way you see these scenes? Did this make you notice details you'd usually overlook in a painting? I'm curious how you experienced it. I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for staying until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.